I'm going to quote directly from an article written by Frank Warren and published to his website on the 9th of December 2015. The headline reads as follows: "Why should viewers have to pay for this Josh Tosh? Good luck to Anthony Joshua when he bids for his first pro championship against his former amateur conqueror Dillian Whyte on Saturday, though I suspect Whyte is the one who will need the luck, as Joshua is likely to make light work of acquiring the British heavyweight title. I always maintained that the personable Olympic champion is great for the game, and one day he may well succeed Tyson Fury as a British world heavyweight champion. But to ask viewers to fork out $16.95 for this fight on Sky Box Office is just not on. Let's be honest, both are novice pros with little more than a fistful of contests between them, none of them against meaningful opponents. And would anyone recognize Whyte when he walks down the street? While it is a decent enough domestic scrap, to me it looks a somewhat lopsided one. Upsets can happen, of course, as we know only too well from a certain recent seismic shock in Dusseldorf. But if Whyte was to cause one, it would be at least of Fury proportions, if not bigger. I can't see that happening. Based on the evidence of Whyte's last scrappy fight against the 40-year-old warhorse Brian Minto, this will be an easy night's work for Joshua. It could all be over whenever he wishes it to be. That's not just my view. The Sun's esteemed boxing columnist Colin Hart was asked by Boxing News whether Joshua versus Whyte was pay-per-view material. He responded, "Not for me. It's too early for them to be on pay-per-view. Plus it's a mismatch." It is a sound view from a vastly experienced journo. I'll leave a link in the description below to this article, so any of you can go read it, verify that what I'm saying is actually what Frank Warren wrote. Where do I start with this? Well, based upon what Frank Warren said in this article about this fight, AJ versus Whyte, surely he wouldn't put Joe Joyce versus Daniel Dubois on pay-per-view. Would you, Frank? We'll see. Now, he writes off Dillian Whyte's chances against Anthony Joshua. He quotes Colin Hart of all people. I mean, if you want an example of a clueless boxing journalist, look no further than Colin Hart. I mean, the guy has been interviewing fighters and attending fights for decades, but yet somehow this man seems to know absolutely nothing about boxing. I remember back in the days when he used to do some commentary from Sky now and again, for Sky now and again, he was just absolutely clueless about what was going on in the ring. And this is yet another example of Colin Hart's cluelessness. So of all the people that Frank Warren could quote to basically endorse his view on a particular fight, I mean, you can't come up with somebody any worse than Colin Hart, truth be told. That man's clueless about boxing. I don't know how you could be around boxing for so long and watch so many fights and seem to have learned virtually nothing. It's incredible. But there's a very strong element of wishful thinking in this article from Frank Warren. Yeah, very strong element of wishful thinking. I was saying all along that this was going to be a very exciting fight and a competitive fight while it lasted. I'm not making it up, people. Let's take a trip down memory lane. How many of you remember this video right here? Dated the 29th of April, 2015, several months before Dillian Whyte versus AJ, I think, was even signed. And the title of the video is 10 Fights I Prefer Over Mayweather versus Pacquiao. And one of the fights that I mentioned in the video was, you guessed it, Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte. Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte. That was one of the fights that I mentioned as being more excited for than Mayweather Pacquiao. Yeah? Let's rewind it back just in case you didn't hear it the first time. I ain't lying. Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte. I said it back in 2015. I did several videos about the fight. Here we go, another one, agreed for November, December 2015. I was so hyped for AJ versus Dillian Whyte because I've been following both guys' early careers. I understood the personality types. I understood that when you get young guys like this that have a grudge with each other, that have chips on their shoulder, that's normally when you get the best fight out of them. I could see it. I was being slated by many people, particularly on this video right here. People calling me crazy. People calling me a flat out liar, saying, you're lying. You don't prefer Joshua versus White over Mayweather Pacquiao. You're lying. Well, no, I genuinely did, because I knew Mayweather Pacquiao wasn't going to be a particularly great fight. I knew that Pacquiao was long past his best, and that he wasn't going to be much of a match for Mayweather at the time. I knew all this. And I knew that when you get two young heavyweights with chips on their shoulder, Dillian Whyte, a very tough guy, if you'd watched his interviews and listened to the things he'd said, been out there sparring the Klitschko's and all that kind of business, had a very tough, gritty, determined mentality. So I never saw him getting blown out the way so many other people were, the way Colin Hart was claiming he would be, the way Frank Warren was hoping he would be, because Frank Warren wanted the event to be a flop. Now, one thing that you'll notice, though, from this article is although he's criticizing the fight being on pay-per-view and, expecting it to be a mismatch, he still has somewhat of a positive attitude towards AJ himself, saying that he's personable and saying that he may well go on to be a champion and is great for the game, he said here. Well, all of those compliments towards Anthony Joshua stopped when AJ signed his extension, and it was a long-term extension with Matchroom several years later. And that's typical Frank Warren. Frank Warren has a habit, and this has been going on for decades, of targeting a particular fighter who he wants to sign, serenading the fighter. And if the fighter goes in a different direction and signs with somebody else, Frank Warren can become very bitter towards that fighter, literally overnight. I have seen it time and time and time again with the man over the years. This is what he does. He becomes so bitter literally overnight. And so all of the nice things he used to say about AJ, they stopped when AJ signed that long-term extension with Matchroom. Now, he's just slagging AJ off most of the time. It really is incredible with old Frankie boy. But hey, let's see if he actually puts the Joyce Dubois fight on pay-per-view. You guys reckon he will? We'll see. Those of you who are on Twitter and haven't been blocked by Frank Warren, you might want to go to the link in the description below. Maybe take some screenshots of that article. Send them to Frank Warren. Tag him in it. See what he says, because let's be real, none of the interviewers on YouTube are likely to ask Frank Warren, this particular question about the Joyce Dubois pay-per-view, given what he said about AJ versus White many moons ago. Yeah, they're not likely to ask him that because he's the kind of person who likes to ban people from his shows and press conferences and all this kind of stuff because he doesn't like stuff they've said or written about him. That's how Frank Warren is. It's not like with Hearn. With Hearn, you can slag him off and say all kinds of things about him, and he keeps letting you into his press conferences. He keeps letting you in, to his media events and all this business. It's quite incredible. But yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's Hatman, I'm out. Hatman merch is now available. We got t-shirts, vests, hoodies, and more. Just click the link below. Join me on Patreon. I upload a minimum of 2 podcasts every single week, covering a wide variety of controversial topics, as well as live stream Q&A sessions. Take a look on screen right now at some of the podcasts I've produced so far. For just $3 a month, the equivalent of about £2 a month, you get access to all my new podcasts and my entire back catalogue of past podcasts, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen on your computer or on your smartphone or tablet by downloading the Patreon app from the Google Play Store or the App Store for free. The Patreon app also allows you to download each podcast in MP3. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, you get access to dozens of hours of exclusive content. It's easy to sign up, there's no contract, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.